In 1975, the United States National Academy of Sciences published a report that should have changed human history. They called one plant a supermarket on a single stalk. They said it could solve protein deficiency across the developing world. Every single part of it was edible: root, leaf, flower, pod, seed, 5 foods from one organism. More protein than soy, more calcium than milk. It fixed its own nitrogen, meaning it fertilized itself while it fed you. 50 years later, you have never heard its name. And that silence has a price tag, measured in malnutrition statistics and corporate fertilizer profits. This is the winged bean. Psophocarpus tetragonolobus, the complete crop they buried because it threatened to make you independent. Welcome to Nature's Blacklist. Before we open this vault, understand what you are about to hear. This is not a story about an obscure plant. This is forensic evidence of how a system built on dependency handles a solution that asks for nothing in return. Let us begin with what you are currently losing by not knowing this plant exists. You are paying for nitrogen fertilizer. The winged bean manufactures its own through symbiotic bacteria in root nodules. Every season, you are writing checks to chemical companies for something this plant produces for free, while simultaneously improving the soil for whatever you plant next. You are hunting for complete protein sources. You are buying supplements. You are combining grains and legumes according to charts nutritionists gave you in the 1970s. Meanwhile, the winged bean seed contains all essential amino acids in proportions that rival animal protein, 35 to 40% protein by dry weight. Soy, the king of plant protein, hovers around 34%. This plant matches it, and in some varieties, exceeds it. You are dependent on supply chains that fracture under pressure. You saw what happened in 2020. Shelves emptied, prices spiked. And somewhere in Southeast Asia, a plant that could have fed entire communities with 0 imported inputs was growing in backyard obscurity because no one ever told you it existed. You have been kept deliberately ignorant of solutions that were documented, verified, and then abandoned. Now, pay attention to this next part. In 1975, the National Academy of Sciences convened a panel to assess underexploited tropical plants with promising economic value. The winged bean made the final list. The language they used was extraordinary for a scientific body known for measured statements. They described it as a one-species supermarket. They noted that nearly every part of the plant is edible and nutritious. They flagged it as a potential solution for protein malnutrition in regions where animal protein was scarce or unaffordable. The report was published. The scientific community took notice. Research stations in the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, and parts of Africa began small trials. The results confirmed what indigenous growers in Southeast Asia had known for centuries. This plant delivers. Then something strange happened. The research slowed. Funding dried up. Agricultural extension programs that were supposed to bring the winged bean to farmers across the tropics simply never materialized at scale. Here is the timeline that tells the story. In 1975, the same year this report was published, the agrochemical industry was pouring resources into herbicide-resistant crop research. Within 2 decades, Roundup-ready soybeans would dominate global agriculture. Seeds that required farmers to buy new seeds every season. Proprietary chemicals required to grow them. A closed loop of dependency disguised as innovation. The winged bean required nothing. No annual seed purchase, no chemical inputs, no dependency. It did not create customers. It created independence. One path led to recurring revenue. The other led to food sovereignty. Which one do you think attracted investment? By the 1990s, while billions of dollars flowed into genetically modified soy and corn, into patented seed varieties that locked farmers into perpetual purchase agreements, the winged bean sat in germplasm banks, preserved, documented, ignored. It is worth asking why a plant this valuable received almost no sustained research funding, while crops that generate annual revenue received billions. It is worth asking who benefits when solutions that require no corporate input disappear from public consciousness. The winged bean cannot be patented in its natural form. It propagates itself. It fixes its own nitrogen. It thrives in poor soils where industrial crops fail. It produces food continuously for months. It does not require the fertilizer industry. It does not require the seed monopoly. It does not require you to come back next season with your wallet open. And it was quietly shelved. Now let me show you exactly what they buried. The seeds of the winged bean contain between 35 and 40% protein. Let that number land. This is not some marginal improvement. This is competitive with soy, the global benchmark for plant protein. But unlike soy, which dominates because of industrial infrastructure and political lobbying, the winged bean asks for almost nothing. The leaves are edible. They contain protein levels comparable to spinach, plus significant calcium and iron. You eat the leaves raw in salads or cooked like any green. The flowers are edible. In Southeast Asia, they are added to dishes for color and a mild, sweet flavor. The young pods, before the seeds mature, are eaten like green beans. They have a distinctive four-winged shape, hence the name. These pods contain vitamins A and C, plus fiber and protein. The mature seeds are dried and cooked like any bean. Complete protein, substantial fat content. They can be roasted, boiled, or ground into flour. And here is the part they really do not want you to know. The winged bean produces edible tubers. Underground, starchy storage organs with protein levels that some studies place as high as 15 to 20%, roughly 7 to 10 times what you get from a common potato. Compare that to the potato sitting in your kitchen right now, hovering around 2% protein. The winged bean tuber delivers sustained energy and substantial protein while providing comparable carbohydrates. 5 foods from one plant: leaf, flower, pod, seed, tuber. One species replacing an entire garden section of your dependence. And it manufactures its own fertilizer while it does it. The winged bean, like all legumes, hosts rhizobium bacteria in root nodules. These bacteria perform biological nitrogen fixation, pulling nitrogen gas from the atmosphere and converting it into forms the plant can use. When the plant dies back, or when roots shed, that nitrogen enriches the soil. You plant the winged bean this year, and next year, whatever grows in that spot has access to nitrogen you did not have to buy. This is not marginal efficiency. This is a direct assault on the business model of synthetic fertilizer. Stay with me, because this changes everything about how you should see your food system. Globally, we spend over $200 billion per year on synthetic nitrogen fertilizer. 200 billion. The winged bean, along with other nitrogen-fixing legumes, could fundamentally restructure how we think about soil fertility. Not a minor adjustment, a paradigm shift. And almost no one is talking about it. In Papua New Guinea and parts of Indonesia, the winged bean has been cultivated for centuries. It was never a novelty crop. It was a staple. A farmer in the highlands does not call it Psophocarpus tetragonolobus. She calls it what her grandmother called it, and she has been eating from the same genetic lineage her grandmother planted decades ago. No seed catalog, no purchase order, just continuity. Communities integrated it into polyculture systems where it climbed over other plants, maximizing vertical space. They ate the leaves when the leaves were ready, the flowers when they bloomed, the pods when they formed, the seeds when they dried, and the tubers when the season ended. They did not need a university to tell them what they had. They needed the rest of the world to leave them alone long enough to keep growing it. Colonial agricultural programs pushed cash crops, export commodities, monocultures that fed European markets but stripped local food sovereignty. The winged bean was not exportable at scale. It was not a commodity. It was community food. And community food does not generate the kind of revenue that attracts institutional attention. Now, let me give you the identification brief so you can recognize this plant when you encounter it. The winged bean is a climbing vine. It needs support, a trellis, a fence, neighboring corn stalks. It can reach 3 to 4 meters in a single season. The leaves are trifoliate, meaning 3 leaflets per leaf, similar in appearance to other bean plants. The distinguishing feature is the pod. 4 longitudinal ridges run the length of the pod, giving it a squared, winged cross-section. No other common bean looks like this. If you see a bean pod with 4 wings, you have found it. The flowers are typically pale blue to violet, though some varieties produce white flowers. They appear in clusters and are followed by the distinctive pods. The tubers form underground, similar in appearance to small potatoes, but often more elongated. Not all varieties produce significant tubers. If tuber production matters to you, source varieties specifically bred for that trait. Safety note: the winged bean is not known to have toxic lookalikes in the common bean family. However, as with all legumes, raw mature seeds contain anti-nutritional factors like lectins and trypsin inhibitors. Cook the mature seeds thoroughly. The young pods, leaves, and flowers can be eaten raw or lightly cooked. Now, here is the critical piece. You can grow this plant. It was never actually banned. It was never made illegal. It was simply made invisible through the most effective censorship of all: silence. No one told you about it. No seed company promoted it. No agricultural extension service handed you a pamphlet. But the seeds exist. Small seed companies that specialize in rare and heritage varieties carry winged bean seed. Online seed exchanges list it. In tropical and subtropical climates, it grows without complaint. In temperate climates, it requires a longer frost-free season or greenhouse conditions, but it is not impossible. The plant prefers warm conditions. It thrives in full sun. It needs something to climb. It tolerates poor soils because it fixes its own nitrogen. It produces continuously once it starts flowering, meaning you harvest over months rather than all at once. Every winged bean you grow is a vote against the system that buried this plant for 50 years. Every seed you save and share is a transmission of knowledge that someone, somewhere, preferred you never receive. Every meal you make from a single plant that provides leaf, flower, pod, seed, and tuber is proof that the industrial model lied to you about what is necessary. They told you food requires complexity, inputs, dependency. They told you nutrition requires global supply chains and patented technology. The winged bean has been quietly disproving that for centuries. The 1975 report still exists. You can find it. You can read the words of scientists who believed they were introducing a solution to hunger. What you will not find is the follow-up, the implementation, the revolution in tropical agriculture that should have happened. Because revolutions that make corporations obsolete do not get funded. The knowledge never disappeared. It was only buried. And now, you know where to dig. Here is how this works. The algorithm is watching right now. It is deciding whether this reaches 100 people or 100,000. That decision is based almost entirely on what happens in the next 30 seconds. If you hit like, you are telling the system this matters. If you share this with someone still paying for fertilizer they do not need, you just handed them a key to a vault that was locked for 50 years. And if you subscribe and hit the bell, you are not following a channel. You are joining a list of people who refuse to let this knowledge get buried again. The next vault is already prepared. There is a grain that reseeds itself every year. No replanting required. No seed purchases. Perpetual harvest. It was so threatening to the annual seed model that multiple states classified it as a noxious weed. That vault opens soon. Subscribe so you are there when it does. The supply chain they built requires your ignorance to function. We are dismantling it, one plant at a time. The next vault opens soon.